Warm greetings, everyone. Welcome to today's session of Monday Munching and Musing with Women for Water. This session is conducted with the support of Water Resource Council of the Women Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry in collaboration with W4W Foundation and media partner Counterview. My name is Anubhuti Shekhar and I am the National Youth Representative Community of Wiki Water Resource Council. I am joined by Dr. Mansi Bhargav, who is currently holding the position of National President of Wiki Water Resource Council. Welcome, Mansi. We are glad to start the conversation, namely Monday Munching and Musing with Women for Water, which we colloquially refer as Blue Lips. The conversation is aimed to share the worries and the wisdom by the women, for the women, of the women in the water sector. In here, we hope to learn about the water endeavors of the women in a regular disciplined manner like a masterclass. Today, in this session, we are here to listen and know more about Dr. Fawzia. Dr. Fawzia is an interdisciplinary water professional, an educator, researcher, mentor, and social worker. She has 24 years of experience in project management, teaching, implementing sponsored projects, and capacity building. She is a recipient of Fulbright, Hubert H. Humphrey Fellowship and has spent a year in Cornell University to work on water and sanitation governance. She is also an awardee of the University of Nairobi IDRC Doctoral Research Grant. In 2022, she was recognized as one of the 17 SDG Women Changemakers by Safety and Twitter India. Her research interests are water, food, energy, nexus, water policy, gender equity, participatory water governance, and water conservation. Prior to instituting W4W Foundation, a platform for water conservation, she worked as an assistant professor at Terry School of Advanced Studies. Welcome, Dr. Fawzia, to this session. We are so glad to have you on this session.
Thank you very much, Anubhuti. Thanks a lot for that very, very generous and kind introduction. Thank you.
Thank you for joining, ma'am. I would like to start the conversation by knowing how did you start your water career and what are your current engagement in the water sector right now?
Yeah, thanks, Anubhuti, for that question. I think water for me, it was integral to my growing up. Like I was born in Jharkhand, now Jharkhand, of course, at that point in time, it was Bihar. And just on the shore of Damodar River, which was considered to be Bengal's sorrow. And it's a tributary, of course, of Ganga, because my father was working for Damodar Valley Corporation. So I grew up amidst abundance of water. So there was a lot of water around me. And with my father being a civil engineer, I think he was also controlling the water. So water sort of, was part of me. I would have loved to become a civil engineer, but with great reluctance, I was allowed to do electrical engineering, given that women would seldom take up civil engineering, And then I went on to work, just fast forward to 2000 and my husband was posted in Cochin. So you see how it's all around men, father, husband. And my husband was posted in Cochin and I started working with the All Kerala JCB dealer. And incidentally, the Cochin Corporation was facing a lot of difficulty in their waterways because of water hyacinth and also because of siltation of the waterways. So they reached out to this company, India Tex Limited, and they said, if you could develop something for us to deepen the water channels, because a lot of commuting, happens there through water. So, and also, clearing of the water hyacinth. I'm really not sure because what my management found in me, but they reached out to me and they said, you are an engineer with a fair bit of managerial capability. So we would like to assign this task to you. And they gave me a seed money of 50 lakhs. And they said, Fawzia, go ahead, set up a workshop and build a prototype. So my journey to water started in 2005 when I started building this equipment, which is known as dredge utility craft, or we used to call it as DUC. we modeled it around Finland-based equipment, which was Watermaster. And then, of course, that was my sort of introduction to water. And that's how I developed the liking towards water. And then I went on to do a large number of projects across India. So from Bihar to Delhi and then Hyderabad. So in diverse geographies that I went and I worked. And that was the time I realized that, you know, how much ever I take the engineering approach to water, that's not going to help too much as long as I am looking at what's the source of the problem. So why is the river getting, or why is the waterway getting, you know, silted? Or why is it that the water hyacinth is growing, multiplying so fast in the water body? And therein the whole approach of community came in. And in 2010, I then thought I should go for a deeper understanding of this. I was traveling, you know, in somewhere, I don't remember exactly, but in the aircraft, there was a person sitting next to me. And I just discussed my interest in environment and water and sustainability. And he said, oh, in Delhi, there is an institute, Terry, why don't you go there and find out? So I went to Terry. It was all very interesting. You know, it was 20 years after my engineering that I actually, 91, I did my engineering. 20 years after that, I go to Terry and then I inquire about it. Obviously, the professors were also a little apprehensive whether I would be able to do something like that much. Honestly, at that point in time, there was nobody working in Terry on community participation in water management. So Professor Kansal was the only person working on water per se. And he happily agreed. And he said, Fawzia, we'll learn together. And I enrolled for a PhD program. So, and then, of course, then there was no looking back. I went on to the field. I got a funding from University of Nairobi and IDRC for my PhD. It was a part-time PhD I was pursuing, but yeah, but I was sort of, you know, completely into it, like I would say sucked into it completely then. Then I joined, you know, things kept on happening in my life. I thought, you know, I was destined to be in water. So Terry University started the Coca-Cola Department of Regional Water Studies in 2014 while I was still pursuing my PhD. And then Professor Kansal reached out to me and he said, would you like to go for a transition from corporate world to an academic world? And it was, I was happy. I was excited. And so in 2014, also, I did appear for an interview, which I messed up completely. Because obviously I had literally no understanding. You know, I knew, like I was doing a PhD, but how an academic world operates, I had no understanding. So in 2015, I prepared much better and I did read a lot. And of course, 2015, I got selected. And so now coming to your second part of the question, I think you say that what am I doing right now? So right now, of course, I have taken a sabbatical and I am in Netherlands. So I'm just trying to upskill myself a bit. I think I should be in water and sustainable development. I should be over by October. Alongside, of course, some bit of time that I'm able to take out, which of course Mansi is steering, but Wednesdays for Water, the flagship program that we have under W4W Foundation. So as and when I find time, I try to contribute some bit to that. I'm also doing a couple of projects. So there are two projects that I'm doing at this point in time. So one is the Aravali Biodiversity Park, which is in Gurgaon. So this project, while it, it got completed and was handed over to Hero to operate, didn't really have a good baseline study. So they wanted somebody to look into the water as well as air quality, including carbon sequestration. And so that's one project that I'm doing, and I think that should be over very soon. There's a second project that's Asia Pacific Network Project, which I started while I was part of Terry. It's a multi-country project, so it's between Bangladesh, Nepal, and India, and that is on vulnerability assessment of urban water supply. So the study is located in Bangladesh and in Nepal, and as India, like we are more capacity building partners in that study. So these are the few things that I'm doing with regard to water at this point in time.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Fawzia, for telling us about your journey in the water sector. Like you mentioned about how you didn't get the chance, you wanted to do civil engineering and you couldn't do it. So would you like to tell us how was your journey in the water sector? Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you.
You can hear me, right?
Yes, I can.
So, yeah, I was asking, would you like to share what challenges being a woman in the water sector did you face? Like we talk about a lot about being on the field because water sector involves a lot of going to the field. So, as a woman, did you face any challenges at that point of time? Or are you still facing any challenges in the water sector that we can bridge the gap? Would you like to tell us something about that?
Yeah, I would like to start from engineering. You know, when I wanted to do engineering, as I said, you know, there was a lot of opposition from the family because they said you can do medicine, something, you know, that you're not even interested in. They wanted me to do medicine, and I said, and I used to admire my father. You know, he was my role model, and I would always like to do engineering and not medicine. So as I said, with great reluctance, I was given one single chance to appear for engineering entrance and said, okay, fine, if you don't get through in the first attempt, then you go for your undergraduate studies in pure sciences. I said, fine. And God was kind, I got through. And then I was said that, okay, civil is out of question. So electrical engineering is, or electronics. So I couldn't get through electronics. So I sort of went on to do electrical engineering. So now with the background of electrical engineering, obviously I was not exposed to a lot of subjects, which was water related. But at the same time, there were certain subjects like fluid mechanics, you know, which was also taught to me as part of electrical engineering. So some bit of exposure I did have to water during my engineering. I think in my earlier conversations also, I have talked about this, that at that point in time, the engineering college didn't have a toilet for girls, for females. So we had a tough time because we were about out of 300 boys, we were like, out of 300 students, we were about 18 girls in our batch. And we had to wait for the break to go to the nearest department, which had a girls' toilet. So it was the education department, you know, which runs programs in B.Ed, where more women are expected to be there. So that's the reason they had a toilet for women, so we could go there. And sometimes we had to go back to our hostel to really use the toilet. So that was the biggest challenge, I think, which was there while doing my engineering. Besides, you know, the biases which were playing, that was always there, because if I would do well and if I would score something like 9 and 9.66, and I was always made to understand that it's because you're a girl, you know, that you are being given marks like that. Huh? So my sort of merit, you know, was undermined by saying these things. So that's something that also I faced while I was in my engineering. Moving forward to the water thing, as I told you, it happened to me in 2005. I didn't even have a marine engineering background. I didn't have a civil engineering background. Sorry, Fawzia. Go ahead. Yeah, please continue. I thought I should stop. So in 2005, when I actually moved into the water sector, I didn't have a marine engineering background because I was going to produce an equipment that would float on water. I didn't have a mechanical engineering background because machines are primarily mechanical. And then I didn't have a civil engineering background. So all I had was an electrical engineering background with some bit of experience. So everything was challenged for me, but I sort of, you know, dived into it deeper, not really allowing these challenges to be a constraint, but sort of, you know, thinking of it as an opportunity. So I read about mechanical engineering, I read about marine engineering. I got people on board who were good at these, like from Cochin University of Science and Technology, from the ship technology department, I got somebody on board. And through him, I learned a lot of marine engineering. I got somebody with mechanical engineering and a naval architecture also on board. So through them, I tried learning these things. Honestly speaking, being a woman, I was the project manager, and I had almost about close to about 15 to 20 people working under me or with me. But they gave me a lot of respect for my knowledge and understanding of subject. Rather than really creating a hostile environment for me. I would have never been able to produce this equipment had I not got the support from the people. So starting from the managing director of the company to the last welder, who was there, who would actually go into welding of these equipment, everybody gave me a phenomenal amount of respect. And not even for once I felt, any challenge. It could be cultural context also. I was in Kerala at that point in time. Now, when it came to implementing these projects also, so I would really like to share the first instance that I've really made me realize, oh, because I'm woman, I had to face this question. I went to Delhi to the Irrigation and Flood Control Department. I was mailing to them, and I got an appointment with the chief engineer. And when I went to meet him, I just entered the door. And even before asking me to sit down, the question that he put to me was, are you technically qualified to carry forward this discussion? And, I really didn't know what to answer him, because if I have traveled all the way from Kerala to Delhi and you have accepted my request to give me an appointment, then obviously I would be technically competent. But then I didn't react to it much, because that's not the way forward. So I said, yes, of course, sir. I have been a project manager for this equipment, and I know this equipment quite well. So he then made me sit. And then, of course, in due course of time, he understood that I was very thorough with my knowledge of the product and the technical details. So thereafter, he sort of asked his executive engineer to accompany me and take me to the site. And they went on to actually purchase Ford equipment also. And we operated it in different nalas in Delhi. So that was one of the big challenges, one of the big, I would say, biases that people have or people carry in their mind. So that was, I think, one. The second thing I would say, like when I was doing this work, because I was doing it in diverse places. So when I was in Bihar, of course, in North Bihar, Birpur, like it's Bihar, and Kosi, that Bihar and Nepal border, I really felt unsafe. I felt unsafe. I used to work very hard. Nothing happened per se to me, but I did realize one day that I was staying in a guest house kind of a place, a lodge, not even a guest house, it was a lodge. It's a place where, you don't have hotels or anything. They're small lodges. These people run in their homes, like they sort of sublet their rooms for people to live. So I was staying there, and middle of the night, somebody came knocking at the door, and I felt very unsafe. The person could have broken the door also. Honestly speaking, my managing director actually, when he visited there and he came via Patna, he met my father especially, and he said that I would have never permitted my wife or my daughter to go there and work. So I have specially come here to thank you for this, because they also went on to buy a few machines from us. So safety, of course, in the field is a big issue. Toilets are, of course, issues, but toilets can still be managed. But safety definitely is a very big issue. And that's something that I felt. The third thing that I want to share is, after being in Terry, we got a funding to run this program on gender mainstreaming in water management for policymakers and for the various stakeholders. So, of course, with the policymakers being the main stakeholder for whom we wanted to run. So we had the course material, content, and everything ready. And I thought, now it's time to market it. So I went to the ministry, and I went to one of the joint secretary there, and I spoke with him. And I said, this is something that we have designed. And then he says, gender and water? What has that got to do with it? Huh? And the next thing, he said is, oh, we get most of our things done by IITs. What can Terry University offer us? Huh? Of course, but to my good luck, a new person came as a joint secretary, and I went and met him after a few days. He was very kind. He was new. He was very kind. He nominated, I think, almost 24 people to this training across all the institutes which fall under the Ministry of, that point in time, I think it was Ministry of Water Resources. So I'm talking about 2016. So, and we went on to start this program. After that, we did it in different places. So then I didn't face, but I did see the difference with regard to the participation of women in these programs. So when I went on to do this program in Hyderabad, I found more women, and it was mainly for the major and minor irrigation department. So the participation was almost equal, like men and women were equal. I asked those women whether they feel some challenge in the field. And they honestly said that not much challenge that they face in the field. In fact, they went on to even say that their male counterparts are very supportive. Like if daytime, if there are problems, and if they have to go to the field, they'd go and attend those problems. But if there are issues that come up during night, the male members, volunteer to go and attend those issues. So that's how sort of they support each other. So that's I think what I also understood was that the culture plays a lot of role in this. Over a period of time, I think men are getting more men and the water domain as such is getting more accepting of women, because I do see the infrastructure also becoming more and more conducive for women to work. The cultural shift within the work atmosphere within the organizations have also changed. It has mellowed down a lot with women being part of that. That's also something that I have observed in places. So the shift is happening. So I would not say, I would be wrong if I say that the shift is not happening. It could be slow, but I think I do see a shift happening with regard to women getting more acceptance in the water sector in diverse positions. So it's not just the grassroots nurturing, caregiving positions, but also in with regard to administrative positions and policy-making positions.
Right. Thank you so much, Fawzia ma'am. I think you have mentioned so many things about your journey in little bit part, all the challenges that you have faced. It feels like you have spent so much time, so it must be a great learning experience for you. So like you mentioned that it's almost, now I can see it's almost 25 years that you have spent working in the field and contributing in the water sector. Did you ever feel that being a woman, you had to compromise your engagement because of family or some personal engagement? You have to compromise your work life? How do you balance your work and personal life?
That's a great question, I don't know how to really define that whole thing, career. What exactly is career? Career is it only thinking about myself, or is it thinking about everybody, everybody who matter for me? And I think I would say I have been able to strike a decent balance in that. I may not be at the top at this point in time, but that could be a frustrating thing for me. I would not say that that isn't. So in 1993, after I got married, and my husband being in the Indian Navy, he was posted in Jamnagar at that point in time, and I left my multinational job in Kolkata with GC Alstom India Limited, and I moved on to live with him, and literally I had nothing to do there because there was Reliance came much later, so there was nothing much to do there. I just happened to in the kindergarten school there just to keep myself busy, but I did have a lot of social engagement. So I did the domestic help kids and all, I would call them, and I would teach them. I remember there was an electrician who reached out to me. His son wanted to appear for Jawahar Navodaya entrance, and he reached out to me and said that, can you please coach him in mathematics? And he used to come along with his friend to study mathematics. I, the biggest reward from that I got was just a few years ago. A major in the Indian Army called me up and said, ma'am, with great difficulty, I have been able to find your number. And then he went on to introduce himself. He said, ma'am, I'm one of those students whom you taught, and I got through. And since then, I have been looking for your number, and now I got it. And that is perhaps, the biggest reward that you can get for your contribution. So that was the first time, I would say. But I would do that. I would do this a lot of it. In fact, there were times, when the domestic help children would come with their younger siblings, and they would come, and because their mothers would have gone shopping. So I remember one evening, a newly married Indian girl, when your husband comes in the evening, he sees all these kids sitting in the drawing room, along with those little babies, infant, huh? And he went on. So I asked them to leave, and after he came in, and then he says, Fawzia, since when have you started doing babysitting also? Huh? So that was the kind of situation, that I was into. But so then my son was born in 96, and I almost took a break. So from 93, if you say 93 to 2000, I didn't really do much related to my engineering profession. When my son started going to play school, I even taught in a play school in Cochin. And I just kept myself, I would say, gainfully busy. People would reach out to me. I don't know why they ever always thought I could teach math very well. So they would always reach out for their children, and I kept on teaching them throughout. Like when I was not working also, I used to have these children who would come to me and once in a while to learn math. So that was something that I did. In 2000, I joined Cochin, and I joined this Indiatex Limited in Cochin. And how it happened to me was I started, I thought I had become very obsolete. So I joined NIIT for a computer course. And that's how I got hired into this organization as a computer trainer. And then, of course, I went on to do different things with them. And so there, of course, I even did a front office executive job for them. So let me just tell you that because I wanted to come back into the work environment after 7-8 years. So if you're asking of compromise with regard to, yes, I went on to pick up whatever came my way because I wanted people to know that, I am good. I have the potential to perform and deliver. So I moved on there. And so from front office, they had this training institute. I took over as the associate director of the training institute. And then later on, I did a small stint with time entrance coaching, teaching quantitative aptitude there also to CAT aspirants. So that was something that I did in between. Then I did HR and administration for the same organization. They were looking for a manager, HR and administration. They took me for that as well. So I continued. And then the project manager for the dredging machine. So of course, that was a little high in my career where, within a span of 5 years, I moved there from a trainer to a front office executive to a project manager. So that was a huge jump for me. Then moving on, when I got posted to Delhi, I moved to a similar organization and I took over as general manager sales for water-based equipment. Then moved to Terry, and when I moved to Terry, I was again made to realize that all these experiences don't matter. You can only be a lecturer because at that point in time I hadn't finished my PhD. And after that, I did fight for it. I did tell that, okay, I bring so much of practical experience and that should be counted towards my promotion. But that never happened. So I continued to work there as assistant professor. My past experience was brought to zero at Terry School of Advanced Studies. So now I think we have this whole concept of professor of practice and all that has been brought in, perhaps to address this issue. Because some of these appointments are so highly governed by the UGC guidelines that if you don't fit in there, perhaps you will never be sort of considered for the promotion. So yeah, a lot of challenge every time I find myself starting from scratch, but wherever I am, I think I feel very happy. From the family front, since you asked, my husband being in the military, it wasn't very easy for me because I couldn't have really expected him to be home for everything. So I have one son and I had to give my time to him. I never sent my son for tuitions. I decided that if I can be the best teacher for him, and if I'm not able to do that duty, I think I failed to be a mother, failed to be an engineer, failed to be a professional. So I always taught him. Till about his 10th grade. In his 11th, 12th, he decided to go for commerce. And obviously I had no clue of accountancy. So I was forced to keep a tuition teacher for him because that decision he took a little later. Like he started with science in 11th and then a little later so he missed out a lot of classes. So I did have to keep a tuition for him, a tutor for him for accounts. But by God's grace, for the last 5 years, he's been working in New York City and he's an investment banker. So I'm very happy about it. And I think I think I have succeeded in my career by balancing between family and career.
Right. Thank you so much, Fawzia ma'am, for sharing all the bits of your journey. I think when I was learning from you in my college days, I never expected so much of the background that you have shared, obviously, because we see just a little bits of the person, but there is so much backstory that we learn from. I would like to invite Mansi ma'am to take it from here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anubhuti.
Thank you so much, Anubhuti, for initiating this conversation. And Fawzia, I really see so much of resonance in the way you were mentioning the journey of your life, except the child part of it. I could really see from every bit where you mentioned from 25 years ago to where we have reached together now as part of our water conversations, which we do, which is also this conversation. My questions will be very focused on leadership here. And you did mention from the time when you started to now today, you do see a lot of transition. And in fact, I think we are seeing big change. Yet I will have those questions which are related to being professional and being leader in the profession are actually two different things in my opinion. So maybe we can discuss that as well. So from 25 years ago to now, we do see many women professionals. For example, we also have in the Wiki Water Resource Council. In fact, that can expand to 750 members. Right now, we are only 75 members. If all council members work, we can actually have 750 members. Having said that, when we look at leadership, we are actually talking about going a step further from being professional. So there are two questions for you from me here. One thing is why it is taking so much time to have more women professionals, first of all, and then what it is requiring from us who are already now women professionals to take those extra steps or leap forward to really become leaders. When I say leaders, I really mean that people who have a lot of decision-making powers and who can be game changer in the water sector, because it is still men domain. You know, India fares worse than the world average of 1 in 5 water professionals. But still people like you and me are still feeling better than 25, 30 years ago than today. So over to you, Fawzia, and thank you so much for taking our time. Yeah.
Thanks, Mansi. I think very important questions with regard to leadership and why we don't have more women. And the third thing is about what it would take us to be like to bring more women on board. So leadership, of course, is not about an authoritarian position. So often people confuse leadership with authority. So leadership is, I would say, it's a more empathetic position, where you can, you have been blessed with certain skills, knowledge, And by virtue of that, you are in a certain position. Now, how you can really handhold and nurture more people, and at the same time use those people to contribute, to make meaningful contribution to the sector, whichever sector you are in. Leadership is also not about, for me, is not about the leader being in the forefront, but it's also about allowing people to grow and blossom. So there's a concept which we say the balcony and the dance floor. So the leader need not always be on the dance floor. So a successful leader is one who can pull oneself or pull himself or herself out of the dance floor and take a balcony view and still sees everything functioning well and performing well. And that is something that perhaps makes a person a successful leader. So that said, now coming to the water sector. Water sector, we know, was all about big infrastructure. So as I said, my father was a civil engineer, and he worked in Damodar Valley Corporation, which was all about dams, and it was all about thermal power plants. So the use of water that I looked at while growing up was these dams, which was there, the hydroelectric projects which were there. And then, of course, as a coolant in thermal power plant, which was there. While there was ash, which was being disposed and it was polluting the water, but nobody really talked much about. So these ash buns and all came much later. So people didn't really talk much about that, as much as it was being used as an input or as a medium to generate electricity. So water was all, and then we had the water treatment infrastructure and the water distribution infrastructure, so which would get water for us in the pipeline. Pollution in the water body wasn't that much. I'm talking about 70s, and there was a reason to it also, because the things that are causing pollution were also not there. While we were viewing water from an engineering perspective, but I would go to the Damodar River and different dams, which were all very beautiful in Damodar Valley Corporation. We could do picnics there, and we could still take all our waste back home. We could even go for boating in those water, because those water were crystal clear. The plastics, and all the material which are non-biodegradable came much later. Yes. So while there was an engineering approach to water, in 70s, 60s, I would say 50s also, but of course, like I can talk about from 70s onward, there wasn't really, I wouldn't say that I saw the rivers or the water very polluted. And maybe my concept, of pollution wasn't as much as it is today, because now I understand what are the kind of contaminants. At that point in time, of course, I didn't understand. Maybe the rivers were getting gradually polluted, but it wasn't visible. So a human perception is, what is not visible is not there. So, so that said, everybody, all the uncles and everybody that I saw in Damodar Valley Corporation, they were all engineers and they were all men. So men had a first mover advantage with regard to the water sector, because it was being viewed as an engineering subject or in an engineering domain. Moving forward, when women started also to come into engineering, a couple of them, not many. So civil usually wouldn't be their first choice, given that, it involved the field work, and the field wasn't ready to accept women also. So they had this fear that if I do civil engineering, I end up in a space where maybe, I don't even find a good lucrative job for myself. So they would go for electronics, they would go for computer science later on, like electrical, even chemical, and so other streams of engineering, and not really civil engineering. A couple of them I know who got into civil engineering also and pursued, either went on to do teaching, or they went on to join some research think tank. Minuscule, I would say minuscule population that went on, like women who went on to join the government, also ended up in the labs, more in the jobs which were desk jobs, or they were lab-based jobs. So they ended up doing that. And unlike, the IPS officers or the police forces where women were out there. We know we have example of Dr. Kiran Bedi, who were out there performing even in the 70s. I think women who took up engineering were still apprehensive. So they didn't apply as much for those positions. That was one. A couple of them who applied, they preferred certain roles. And the third thing is also, even when they wanted to take up roles which involved them like traveling, they had family constraints. So they were somewhere bound by the reproductive roles which were there, which sort of prevented them from going and taking up these roles. And kind of family support also, I would say that support wasn't there. So a woman who was working means she was doing double the amount of work. She would prepare food in her house. She would do all her caregiving roles in the morning, come to work, finish it, go back in the evening, and again, get on to those roles. So it was difficult for women. There's no doubt about it. Now, moving forward, people started thinking beyond engineering and medicine. When the development sector opened up and people said, okay, there is something called development sector also. So then there is a space for social scientists and there is a space for people who are beyond science. So earlier, people like us who were studying science, we thought we were the best. And that's why we were studying science. And everybody else was like, oh, that they couldn't get into science. That's why they're doing it. But then the whole space of the development sector and the importance of the development sector. So we have these conventions, where we talked about the Brundtland Convention, which is there, but also about the Sustainable Aarhus Convention, which was in 1992. And many of these conventions were globally also, they started talking about sustainable development, and they started talking about the importance of the grassroots activity. So that was the time, I think, and a lot of think tanks, including think tanks like Terry and all, when they came up they started looking at beyond energy, and they started looking at water also. So energy was something they would work on. So I think that opened up a lot of avenue for women. So teaching was always there. A lot of women did go into teaching. And then this sector opened up. And women thought that since this involves working with people, working with grassroots, working with community, their instinct that is about nurturing sort of helped them to happily take over that space. And since this space also requires a lot of empathy and a lot of understanding of people, I think women started occupying that space. So you will see a lot of NGOs being headed by women today. So if we talk of leadership, you will definitely find a lot of NGOs being headed by. While in the government, we do have a couple of ladies who are even at the position of joint secretary or additional secretary level, or even secretary level. We do see some women who are there. But a couple of them who are younger, I find them more in decorative roles. So they would either be handing a bouquet in an event, or they would be comparing a program. But we don't really find them part of the panel, which would be doing. But I am thinking that slowly, maybe, with a lot of voices, or with a lot of advocacy, that would also change. Now, moving to the younger lot, like Anubhuti is here, and many of them, and I'm sure Anubhuti would agree with me, I would say the younger lot is more conscientious. They do respect, they have respect for all sexes, I would say, all gender. They don't distinguish as much between male and female. So I am seeing a lot of hope, lies with this younger generation, which is there, which is just coming up into the water sector. So we will see a lot of them in leadership position. I do see that, and I do see them being more inclusive and more I would say, accepting of people. So that's it. And then coming to your last question, that what can we do to get more people? So I think Wednesdays for Water, of course, what W4W Foundation is doing a great job. You are doing an amazing work involving a lot of young people. Wiki is, again, a platform that you're already doing a lot through Wiki as well. Alongside, I think, we need to provide them that agency to grow. So one is, going and doing certain thing because they have been invited to do. But how is it that they can independently manage their foot in the door? And that can only happen by asserting your position everywhere. So sometimes, when it is public forum or whenever there is a conference or a workshop, I see a lot of women holding back from asking questions.
Yes.
They feel that, what would people think about it? Huh? And that sort of comes also from the fact that because we are so much caught up in our other roles that we are not able to read well, to keep ourselves updated with what's happening around. While men, would go home and they would have time to read the newspaper or listen to the news, women would be cooking in the kitchen. And by the time they finish their household chores, they're so tired, they end up, they are not able to devote as much time to reading. But with the social media, with so many social platforms and with a lot of news channels being available on YouTube, I think it's very important how women are very good at multitasking. So I do this very often where, if I'm doing some kind of monotonous work, I just put some kind of talk show or something where I can learn a few things, by my side, and it just keeps entering my ear, and I can learn a lot from there. Also, when I'm traveling and all, I do keep reading news items a lot. I wasn't able to do that as much, I would say 10 years back, I wasn't able to give that much time. Today, I think I'm in a stronger position to really devote time to reading. So for that agency, there are many things that are required. Of course, the skill and the knowledge, but also the knowledge that we're talking about is beyond your books, that knowledge. Also that courage to assert yourself. And that comes only with time. Also how to manage rejections. Often women, they get very saddened, emotionally demoralized when they face rejection. But rejection is part of you, it's part of the game. So you will be rejected 10 times, 15 times, but there will be a time, maybe the fight will be a little more for you. But how to handle rejection also is something that I think women should learn to know and get into the mainstream. Yeah, over to you, Mansi.
Yeah. Thank you, Fawzia. I think a few interesting points here. I mean, redefining leadership from your perspective. But at the same time, you talk about important aspect of bringing agency to those who are really in the sector already. Since we are already trying our bit to get women together into a platform, we are trying to acknowledge and appreciate their work. And we have also seen this transition coming from not being acknowledged and appreciated to where we at least we see that there is an acceptance that there may be a woman leader in the camp here or in the project there, or somebody must be taking up important decisions out there. When we talk about the women professionals and we're talking about how to get the agency thing going on there, from our platform itself, I'm just thinking, and we have been talking off this session also, but just to understand a little bit more, as formal conversation here, what are those additional skill sets we should really work toward as women professionals? I mean, I still see it as a ladder. So from being a woman to becoming a woman professional, then becoming a woman professional leader, so I mean, you have to take that extra step. So once we are professionals in various sectors, and we're just talking water here, and it comes often, very often in the water sector, that this whole myth of that one has to be on the field. But when the social science has gotten into the sector, and also now with the IT and all, we know that one is not really going and standing by the lake or by the tube well every day. There are a lot of work which needs to be done here and there also. So when we talk about these things, and when we know that there are various ways women are engaging in water, and that's this number has increased in decades. what kind of additional skills women may like to really get for themselves, or what kind of additional skills we can really think about. Let's say we imagine ourselves. I still don't see myself in the leadership role, but what would be those additional skills which women should have? Few things you already mentioned, from being a little bit more assertive, being ready to take, rejections, and of course, having very clear value systems to me is also equally important. What important, I will say, skill sets which are more tangible skill sets, which are, there are a lot of psychological thing which goes around, because you were talking about those layers, and I was thinking, once woman goes through all these hurdles, the last hurdle is actually the conducive work environment, and which is not really limited to having a toilet or having a crash, but there are these eyes and ears, even including women leaders, who are either supportive or not supportive of other women colleagues. In those kind of situations in our society, there is a good few skill sets which, if a woman tries to, enhance in themselves, maybe they fare better to go faster into that leadership role. Maybe not me at this stage, but at least the mid life and the younger generation. What we took 20 years, they can do it in 2 years or maybe 3 years. So, what additional skills they should really try to get for themselves? Over to you, Fawzia.
Yeah, thanks, Mansi. That's a very difficult question. You know that I'm studying even today, so you can understand.
That
after
learning, that's important.
So, yeah, in spite of my Fulbright fellowship and PhD, even people at IHE are pretty amazed that what are you doing here, huh? So, and I say I want to upskill myself, and they find it, very difficult to comprehend that after so much of experience, you are still trying to sort of figure out where you want to be. And the other day
also,
the other day I was talking to a lady, and she said, I was speaking to a lady, and she said, Fawzia, for women, actually the time, starts after 50. So that's the time she can really invest in herself. Huh? Because before that, she's investing in a lot of things. But after 50 is the time when she can really invest in herself and what she wants to do. So that said, I think that's said, coming to the skills that you were talking about, I'll sort of share with my own experience that what skills I did take up a lot of small leadership role, like being in my school. I was heading one of the houses that was there. Like, we had a lot of houses, and then that way, even when I moved to study in Aligarh, I was heading the games committee of my class, and so a little of these things I have done it, of course, in the past. So wherever I got an opportunity, I think I could move to a role where I could lead, and I could take my team to a fair position. So that's something that perhaps, a couple of times I have had the opportunity, or even, when I was the project manager for the dredging machine, I did get a chance to lead. So now, do we need to really have all the skills to lead? No. So because I told you, I wasn't a mechanical engineer. I wasn't a naval architect. I wasn't a civil engineer. I wasn't a marine engineer. Yet my company thought I could lead this project. So that means it's an attitude. Leading is not about having all the skill. Leading is about having the right attitude to bring people together and to make them work to their strengths. Everybody will not have the same kind of strength. So how you can get people, diverse set of people, understand, appreciate that diversity, and get each one of them to work to their strength to maximize the output that we are looking at, whatever is the desired end objective. To obtain the desired end objective, how can you get people to work? So identifying the right kind of people, getting them on board, providing an environment, a respectful environment in which they can operate, and then getting them together to work as a team to produce the desired end objective that is there. So, but there are few skills which are still important. For instance, if you want to get into activism, you should definitely know the rules and regulations which are there, the legal aspect of it. You should not be just creating a noise outside without understanding the norms. So there are certain skills that like when I wanted to do a dredging machine, I didn't know any of these things, but I went into reading a lot. So today, a lot of things that I speak, I don't have a civil engineering background, but I learned it the hard way. So invest in learning in whatever field you are. So it's not just one field, but whichever field that you decide to work in. I think you need to invest in understanding that part of it. The second thing that women should definitely work on is the future skills. So if you look, the World Economic Forum every year comes out with the top skills, the top 10 skills. And if you see in the top 10 skills, the creativity, the problem solving skills, and also I would say AI and digital skills. So these are the skills which are moving to the top. Of course, environmental and other skills are also there, but these are some of the top skills which are there. For instance, when I came here to IHE Delft, I literally challenged myself that I will learn Python, I will learn geoinformatics, geospatial, remote sensing and GIS. And today I'm doing my project in remote sensing and GIS. And in fact, there are some underprivileged students for whom I'm even running classes on GIS and Python, because that is going to help me strengthen my understanding of it. So twice a week, I take out time to run such classes for students, so that my understanding becomes better. So learning and then sharing. So one is, of course, identifying the field that you are in. What are the core skills that you require for it? I gave the example of activism, like this thing, that understanding the political scenario, understanding the geopolitics also, not just limited to your country, but around, understanding the global and the local perspective, and then understanding the rules and regulations, and then, then going out and talking about it. So then you're more informed, and then it's easier for you to get foot in the door. So likewise, that is one. Second is, once you have learned, you should share it. So don't keep your knowledge to yourself. That's not going to take you anywhere. So share it as much as possible with people. So your understanding of the subject gets reinforced, but there are people who learn about it. So I think that's, again, very, very important. That's there. And then, as I said, the world is moving very fast. So if you don't keep pace with that, then you will be left behind. And women are having a lot of other commitments in their homes. So it's important that they take out time to take up few online courses, which they think would be useful to them. It could be like waste management, for instance. A lot of conversation is around waste management, and there are online courses available on waste management, how they can upskill themselves on waste management. Likewise, you will see that there are training programs on Python skills, or there are training program on IT skills, or there are training program on, a lot of which is available on gender, whichever field that you work in. I think there are a lot of things happening online. Today, I think we are best positioned to access knowledge. It's available literally freely in public domain. So women should try and, beyond looking after their children and family and everybody else, which of course is their prime responsibility, I would not say that they should compromise on that, but take out time for yourself and invest, in skill building for yourself. And that's very important. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So I have my last question. Again, all my questions are with two questions, to be honest. Now that we are in this partnership of Woodley Water Resource Council and other, of course, you are also part of many other associations and councils like we experience. And we also realize that these kind of networks, platforms, or partnerships are very crucial for professional development, as well as to really step into those leadership roles when required, where required. So just want to understand from you with this council form, there are two important ways where we can really look at, and you are also a part of the National Council of the Water Resource Council. Two things. One is that what can be offered to the council as professionals in the field for so many years, so that the council has stronger ways to really represent and also become little bit, visible to organizations where we need to really tell that women have to be there. At least first we have to knock the doors for their presence in those organizations, and then comes taking the decision making roles. And what kind of things council can offer to the council members, or this kind of platforms where they can really reach out to as many as organizations and inform. So what should we do, in short, from the council, and what should, as a council member or as a water professional, what should I expect from the council? What kind of support? Let's say, what kind of support Fawzia would like to see from the council, and as a national council member, what she is planning to do for the council for other women. Over to you. Two questions in one.
Yeah, good question. I think both are very good questions, I would say. I think I will draw from, in fact, earlier I was having a conversation with Ajit sir, and he was telling that, the W4W Foundation website in itself is a repository. It's a repository. Yes. We have had conversations on so many topics, and a lot of information is available there, but how many of us are really able to take out time to go through that information? So one thing that we infer from this is that how much ever we are creating information, people are looking at shortcuts. So how I can just quickly read something and I can learn. So, and we have to keep, again, as I said earlier also, we have to keep pace with time. So times are changing, the way people look at things are changing. So my first thing, I think, coming to the council, that while there's so much available already with us, and there's a good strength that we have both in the council and also in the W4W Foundation speakers group. We have, I think, people from diverse disciplines. So when we're looking at water, for instance, whether we are looking at regulatory, legal, economic, governance, technology, anything, art, anything that you're looking at. I think we have, perhaps we are best positioned to run any kind of training program. But it's important to identify. So I think maybe a quick Google survey. I'm just being very specific to the Wiki Women Council that we have at this point in time. So a quick survey on maybe what are you doing? So for instance, I'm into advocacy. I am into activism. I am into wastewater treatment, or I am into nature-based solution, or I am into art. So just quickly, and then second question, what are the challenges that you are facing? So what are you doing? What are the challenges that you are facing? What are the skills that you need, do you think, that would make bridge the gap that is there? So that is something that you can ask. Very few will respond. Again, let me tell you, because not that people don't want to respond.
That, by the way.
Yeah. So this quick thing will give us an idea as to what people think. I'm assuming, even in W4W Foundation speaker booklet, we did face it. So that's why I said very few would respond. But assuming that 20 people respond, and they may still not be able to identify all the gaps, right? So then based on our understanding and wisdom, we can also sort of add a few to that and say that, okay, we are running a training program. The other day, as I was suggesting, that legal, for instance, the regulatory norms which are related to water. And we're running a training program, so everybody who wants to join. So people don't have to watch videos and all that, but they can quickly join and they can quickly listen to that. And at least, for instance, environmental impact assessment that is there. What does it entail? I'm not saying from a scientific perspective. I'm not saying that they should know all the physico-chemical characteristics of water and look at BOD and DO and all kinds of pollutants and all that. No, it's not that. But at least a basic understanding. That is something that they need to need to understand. So we need to really identify core areas linked to the water sector and offer very succinct training programs, which can sort of give them a quick, what can I say, leapfrogging from where they are to a stage where they can negotiate better. So that's the first step, I would say. Collaborating, of course, with each other. So wherever they are, we need to collaborate with each other. And I think we are already doing it pretty well. That people are coming together and cooperating. Yeah. Now, coming to myself, I think it's just unfortunate that I've not been able to really do much, both on the W4W Foundation front and Wiki front. I've been trying my best, whatever. Wiki, I've not been really able to do anything, I would say. But that said, I think policy is a very important thing, and how we can really influence policy through research, through evidence-based research. I think that's something that Wiki can definitely do, and that's something that I can definitely contribute to, wherein, you know, we do have an interdisciplinary team, so we are not even constrained. So how we can get people together to carry out small research, like for instance, Jal Jeevan Mission is going on now. How we can get some of us to really, and we have people from all parts of the country, how can we get them to really give their insights? And if we can get their insights on what's happening on ground with regard to Jal Jeevan Mission, that can be compiled into a good policy document and say that, okay, while this whole policy of Jal Jeevan Mission has worked well in these areas, there's still constraints which are there, and how possible recommendations also. So it's not always that people should be finding fault in the system, or people should be really looking at the gaps, but it's more important. We all know that the gaps are there. How can Wiki be part of the solution? And that's something that I can definitely, I think I should be able to do to Wiki, and I should be doing it. Huh?
We are really looking forward to you taking that lead in that activity, because I have been also very busy just knowing all of you, because that's important for me also to know how we can work together, and then others are also listening and learning about each other, because most of the people in that group actually did not know each other before we formed the group. So this is also going through a learning process as a platform for last 1 year now. So I will rest my questions here, because I know both of us can go on and talk about water women until our last breath, and we have been doing it for so many years now. Yeah. So let me just hand it over to Anubhuti, because the last question is apt for her to ask, and I think we are then nearing our completion of this conversation. Thank you so much, Fawzia, and over to you, Anubhuti.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mansi ma'am, for asking such wonderful question. And thank you, Fawzia ma'am, for joining us today. It was really inspiring to know you, how your journey was as a woman in the water sector. My last question is, any message that you would like to share to the young people who are joining the field in the water sector, or specifically anything you would like to share to the women who are working in the water field?
Oh, this is a difficult question. While I have been amongst the youth so much, but this is definitely a tough question. But I would say that the young water professionals, especially the youth, first of all, I always tell them that we have really ruined the water. It's our generation, and the generation before us. We have really systematically ruined our water. So now a lot of hope we have. You may be feeling too overburdened because, but at the same time, your generation is the last flicker of hope. And if we can really do something magical at this time, perhaps that's something that can really, maybe I would say from that point of no return where we brought it, there could be a U-turn in the water sector with regard to what we're looking at, water stress and other things. So that said, for women in the water sector, I would say that there's no limit or there's no boundary that is there. So you you can actually break the glass ceiling. So don't ever feel that there is a glass ceiling or glass walls that is stopping you. So given that you have a role in your house, which I always tell all women that you should perform it to the best of your ability. But as a water professional, I think you should also try to keep engaging and learning and not stop learning at any point in time. And do not get demoralized by failures. Do not get demoralized by rejections. Try to stand up and walk again. Because every time you fall, you're only stronger, more and more stronger to go and talk about water. So all the best to all the women and youth in the water sector as well.
Thank you so much, Fawzia ma'am. I think you have reflected a lot of points today, especially I really like the idea of doing the small survey so that we can know what all gaps all the women in the Wiki Council is facing, and we can work on that. Thank you so much for joining us today. May you remain an inspiration to others. We are so grateful to have learned about your water endeavors. May you continue your water activities and please keep us posted. We look forward to the coming Mondays to learn more about women in the water sector. We will continue with the Monday Munching and Musing on every Monday at 5 p.m. For regular update, please follow our social media platform. Thank you. Do take care. Bye. See you.
Thank you so much, Fawzia.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. It's good to hear from you. Like
Can I have just one word? Can I just have one word?
Sure, sir.
Please,
Please.
Please, sir.
Okay,
sir.
sorry.
Please
I might go for a couple of minutes. It's
ahead,
actually see this our career in a marine engineer on board, working on board a ship is totally a male dominated career.
Yeah.
Now we are trying to get in women, and we have certain women force working on the ships, and there are a group of us who are promoting these senior women who are there in the field, especially for reskilling specific skills. There are a lot of specific skills which they can master up, and they become more confident, they become more leaders, and as leaders they progress very well in the career. Okay, one more thing I would like to say. My interest in environment way back, say about 40 years back, when I'm actually a marine engineer working on board ship, purely a mechanical marine engineer working with hands on ships, engines and engine systems. My interest to environment came because of my involvement with a senior professor, a lady professor at IIT Delhi, Padma Vasudevan by name. She happens to be in our relation, and she said that now that you have so much of spare time, when you a lot of practical projects, and from there for this.
Hello.
I think it's dropped out. Huh? Yeah, joining back again.
Okay, we dropped out. We can just call him, and then thank you so much, Fawzia. I'm just stopping the recording.